What's up, guys? I know this isn't, well, there's gonna be gameplay in the background, but I know this isn't my normal gameplay, uh, stuff, but I've been watching a lot of football, which is why there hasn't been any videos. And maybe a little bit too much now that the MLB playoffs are going. I've been watching that too. But it's finally week 5. Gotten a bit into the football season, a little bit past a month, and I've created what I think are the top 10 teams in the NFL. Starting at number 10, I have the Packers. Now, I think the Packers have a lot of good things going for them. I think their offense could be better. They only put up 16 against the Colts, and I don't know. They beat the Rams by one score. They only lost the Vikings by one score. They definitely have a high ceiling, but I also think a couple injuries could really hurt this team. I think they're a little weaker of a side than some of the other teams on my list. So that's why they're at 10. I think Jordan Love's back. He didn't look super great against the Rams. I think he's recovering. He'll look pretty good against the Cardinals. I think that'll be a great game. So that's why I have them at 10. Number 9, I have the Bucks. And Mike Evans seems to get better every year. Now he's back. He's got a good quarterback. Baker Mayfield's been doing great. He's been one of the better quarterbacks in the league this year, which is a weird thing to say, but it's true. And I think overall the Bucks have been a decent team. Obviously, they lost a very close game to the Falcons last week, but they're still a decent team. They beat the Eagles by more than 2 scores. Final score of that was 33-16. But the reason I don't have them higher up, they also beat the Lions 20-16. They beat the Commanders. Those are Eagles, Lions, and Commanders are by no means bad teams. Now, some of the questions come is, how do you lose to the Broncos 26-7? It's the same reason I don't even have the Jets on this list. Is don't get me wrong, the Broncos are 3-2. They're not bad, but they're not a team that's been great offensively, especially not 3 weeks ago. So I think that raises a little bit of questions. That's why I have them at number 9 and not higher up. At number 8, I have the Falcons. Obviously, as I just highlighted, the Falcons beat Buccaneers 36-30. They also beat the Saints, who have been very decent, 26-24. They only lost the Chiefs by 5 points, which is a big deal. They beat they beat the Eagles. They lost to the Steelers. There's the whole Steelers had a weird stretch at the beginning of the season, going 3-0. But overall, I think this team has a lot of upside as Kirk Cousins gets more back to himself after the injury. He's a little more comfortable in the offense. He's been looking better every week. I think they could utilize Bijan more. I think if Bijan got a couple more carries a game and Kirk Cousins didn't throw the ball 55 times a game, I think that would really help the Falcons get better. But they're not a bad team at all. They're in the top of their conference right now. Or not. They're in the top of their division at 3-2. And they're a decent team. So, coming in at 7 is the Bills. And by the Bills, I really mean Josh Allen. Now, when Josh Allen does great, the Bills do great. They beat the Cardinals in a close game where Josh Allen dominated. And the games that they have won, have put up 30 points or more. The 2 games they have lost, they've put up 30 points combined. And that's something to note. Josh Allen decides everything. He decides the points. Obviously, Dalvin Cook has been great for this Bills team, but you can't just have a run game. unless it's the Ravens' run game, but that's a different story. You can't just have the run game. You have to have more than that. The other thing is the defense is they've been out-schemed the last 2 weeks. The Ravens, they gave up 35 points. The Texans, they gave up 23. And it's clear that they can't just run one coverage the whole time. They can't run their same off zone over and over again. The cover 3. It's not going to work. It's not great at stopping the run. So I think that's some coaching questions. It was very clear against the Texans. They didn't have a number 1 wide receiver. It's pretty clear against the Ravens too. The defense looks pretty all right. They held, I don't even know if I want to say all right. They held the Texans to 23 points, but the Texans have been an up and down team this year. That's why I don't have them farther up, even though they had a great start to the season. Number 6, I got my team, the Ravens. Now, the Ravens obviously had a slow start to the year as they lost to the Chiefs by a toe. They lost to the Raiders by a field goal. And something to note is this was the Cowboys game too, where they won by 3 points, 28-25. They hadn't done a very good job of closing out halves, the second half. They've looked great in the first half. They had a 10-point lead against the Raiders going into fourth quarter. They were essentially beating the Cowboys 28-0. But they have to keep going strong. And that's what they did against both the Bills and the Bengals, and that really boosted them a lot. If we did this rankings after week 3, I wouldn't have the Ravens in the top 10. But after putting up 41 points to, a non-existent Bengals offense, but they also put up 35 points against what at the time looked like a really good Bills offense. And the last couple of weeks, their offense really has looked unstoppable. Lamar Jackson looks like he's playing Madden, stiff-arming defenders and throwing for touchdowns. So that's why I have them at number 6. And the more wins they get, the higher they'll climb. Maybe it's a bit of bias, but they've been very good. They're also at the top of the division now. At number 5, I have the Texans. And it's really hard to ignore a 4-1 team. Now, I think the Texans, despite being 4-1, have been a little bit of a disappointment. They beat the Bills essentially because the Bills' offensive play calling sucked. They beat the Jaguars by 4 points. The Jaguars have arguably been the worst team in the league this year. They got smoked by the Vikings, 34-7. They played a close game against the Bears and a close game against the Colts, winning. They've won all the games by less than a touchdown this year. Beat the Bears by 6, beat the Colts by 2, beat the Jags by 4, beat the Bills by 3. So, it's very obvious they can come back, they can keep games close, and they will beat you by a possession if you give them the opportunity to. But I think this team is the worst of the top 5 I have on here. I don't think they're as good as the Commanders this year, which is, again, a crazy thing to say. But despite being 4-1, I think the team has a lot of questions to be answered. So that's why I have them at number 5. Speaking of Commanders, number 4, I have the Washington Commanders. Yes, I know the Commanders' schedule has been fairly easy, but with them playing the Patriots, Giants, Browns, and Bengals. But their offense has looked like arguably the best in the league, especially last 3 weeks. Put up 38 points against the Bengals, 42 points against the Cardinals, and 34 points against the Browns. And Jayden Daniels, honestly, is looking like an MVP candidate. Now, do I think he'll win it? No, that's because he's a rookie. Rookies never win. But it is to be said that this is a scary team to place. And I think the Ravens-Commanders game is going to be one of the best games we've seen all season. It'll be probably the two best offenses. It'll be the two best offenses in the NFL going head-to-head. So I think that game will answer a lot of questions and probably decide this team's future. If they lose that game, there'll be some questions. Obviously, they'll probably beat the Panthers. And from there, we'll see. the Commanders have arguably one of the easier schedules in the NFL, as they get to play the Giants twice. Uh, so it'll to be decided. But right now, they're 4-1. I have them at number 4 on my list, and we'll see how things goes from here. Number 3, I have the Detroit Lions. Now they're 3-1, but they've looked pretty good. They beat the Cardinals, the Lions, and the Rams for their 3 wins. They lost to the Bucks by less than a touchdown. And honestly, last week, before they played the Seahawks, I don't even think I would have had them on top 10. But now that they've beaten the Seahawks, and they looked really, really good against the Seahawks, looked more like the team they were last year that made it all the way to the championship, I think this team's going to get better every week. And I think the Vikings-Lions in 2 weeks is going to be a very, very good game. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to get to see that a couple times. Really looking forward to it. So I think that's where I stand on Lions. Not too much to say. They've played one less game than everyone else. Their offense is really high-powered when you let them get the ball rolling. Let Jared Goff do his thing. Let the running backs do the thing, man. Between Demo and Jahmyr Gibbs, they've been one of the best running back cores in the NFL. So the way they utilize both running backs is great. But now, number 2, got everyone's second least favorite team in the NFL. I think just about everyone hates the Cowboys more. We got the Kansas City Chiefs, along with the Zebras, to be 5-0. Now, they had a fair win against the Saints, beat them by 2 touchdowns. But they were only able to put up 17 against a questionable Chargers team. And they've won just about every game by some sort of penalty. They beat the Ravens by a toe out of bounds. They beat the Bengals off of a non-existent PI. They beat the Falcons on a PI too. Chargers game raised a lot of questions. Is the Chiefs supposed to be one of the best teams in the NFL? And it was impressive. Yes, they held the team to 10 points, and they've done that in all their games. They haven't given up more than 20 points in a game. Well, they gave up 25 to the Bengals. But for the most part, they've given 20 points or less up in their games, and that's looked great. Been a great looking team. They're 5-0, obviously. When you're 5-0, you're going to be high on the list. There's not much to say about that. That leaves them to the final team in the NFL. I'm sure you've all seen this coming. The Minnesota Vikings. At 5-0, they smoked the Eagles 26-3. They smoked the Giants. Granted, it's the Giants, right? But still, a win's a win. They smoked the Texans, who they were not supposed to beat. And they beat the 49ers by 6 points. A lot of questions coming into the Packers game was, can they hold a close game? And I don't know how well that question was answered. They were winning by a decent bit at half. Packers almost came back. Vikings were able to hold them off. But where they really, really showed how good this team could be is the Jets game, man. They were really able to hold the Jets 17 points. Their defense looked really good, picking off Aaron Rodgers 3 times. So, I think if their defense can keep up the good work, especially with injured players right now, when you get some more starters back, their defense is going to be real scary to play against. And it's clear Sam Darnold doesn't have to be... He's been very good. His first not great game. But Sam Darnold doesn't have to be the best quarterback in the NFL. He went 14 for 31 with 180 yards and an interception. That was the stat line. But that's fine. the offense doesn't need to be the best in the world when their defense plays like it did last week. Didn't give up any points in the first quarter. So I think the Vikings deserve to be the number one team in the NFL. Mostly because I didn't want to put the Chiefs up there. But that concludes it for our Week 5 power rankings. I will be back for Week 10. I might post some pick'em videos. We'll see. We'll see. I'll be back for Week 10. So yeah. Might post a video next week guessing what my Week 10 power rankings will be. But until then, see you guys in about a month or so, probably. That's gonna be it.